I'm going to share with you a statement that has made a profound difference in my life. It goes like this. Try that again. You don't have to do everything you have to do. Okay, it sounds a little trite, and everybody, when they read that, say, oh, well, that's obvious. Well, let's talk about how this really applies in our lives, because it makes a huge, huge difference. So let's do this. Let's start off with this one. You don't have to do everything you have to do. So you've got this list of things that you are expected to do. First off, I encourage you to look at what creates that expectation. What is it that makes you feel that this is something you have to do? Is it culturally? Is it legal? So yes, you probably ought to file your taxes. I'm going to restate that. You definitely should file your taxes. That's a legal requirement. But there are some things that are out there that you may not really have to do. So let me just give you an example or two. So do you have to really change the sheets on your bed once a week? Yes, we see those gross pictures of all those bed bugs that are crawling around, and we somehow get the impression when we look at those that if we don't change our sheets on our bed right at 1 week, that we're coming close to dying. But how many people do you know who have actually died from, it's not bed bugs, it's dust mites? How many people have you know that have actually died from dust mites? You know, when we look at the subject of yard care, there's a whole bunch of things that are culturally have become acceptable. For example, you don't necessarily have to weed your garden. You could put down landscape fabric and put rocks on top of it and be done with it and never have to weed again. You don't have to mow your lawn. You don't have to fertilize your lawn. You don't have to do so many things. And there are things that, you know, maybe we would just, this bush just died. Maybe we won't put a new bush in there. Somehow it's culturally acceptable to do things around yard care that aren't culturally accepted around so many other things. And so when we start thinking about whether it's true that we don't have to do everything we have to do, it starts raising the key question of, are you doing the right jobs or not? You know, 80-20 rule totally applies. 20% generates 80% of the results. Perhaps you should just never do the other 80% of the work and just go ahead and enjoy the 80% of the results. I have literally built entire businesses on that principle, where all we did was the 20% of the work and we never did the remaining. And I also encourage you to think about your productive capacity. Are there things that could be done in a different way to make it more effective? So if you go look at doncrowther.com, there is a blog post there called How to Be More Productive. I encourage you to read that, because in it I talk about, I believe, 9 different ways that you can focus on your productive capacity. And several of those ways are ways to do things faster. And so that you may still do this task, but you accomplish that task in half the time. Now, here's the next piece. You don't have to do everything you have to do. Do we really have to do it? So what would happen if that job just never got done? Would your business die? Would your children die? Would you die? There are jobs that are things that we regularly do that we really don't have to. So I have a friend who I keep trying to convince It is possible to go shopping or go to the doctor without having to post it on social media. This person does not get that. And I actually see stress in this person's life as they have not yet posted it to social media. And so how dare they can't do anything else until they stop and post it to social media. Or what if that job got done less frequently? So when I was growing up, we had 8 children. And that means there's lots of jobs to be done. And my parents believed in not doing all the jobs themselves. And so we got to do many of the jobs. And I remember frequently asking my parents, why is it that we have to vacuum the stairs every single day? Would our house blow up if we just did it every other day? Is it possible you could just do that job a little less frequently? Or what about this one? What if it was done a little less completely? So one of the things that I was trained to do is when you get done washing the dishes, the next step is that you have to take out the cleanser and clean the sink. And it wasn't until I got married and went years down the road that I discovered, you can actually do the dishes without cleaning out the sink afterwards. It's going to be a little harder when you finally get around to doing that a little bit later, but you don't have to do every job as completely every single time. It is possible to mow the lawn without trimming around the edges and only do that once every other time. Think about that. Okay. And obviously, you don't have to do everything you have to do. So obviously, there's somebody else who can do that job. And there's so many jobs that you literally should not be doing. So show me the jobs you do, and I'll show you your future. Are you doing the genius work? Are you doing the work that only you can do? Are you doing $15 an hour work or $1,000 an hour work? I know I've talked about this kind of thing before, but I think it really comes down to this mindset that we need to go back to this question of, are we doing the right jobs or not? When we start analyzing truly what we do and start to say, you know what? That job, it's just not going to get done. So that I can do a job that maybe is less urgent, but is way more important to be done. And by the way, there's one other thing. I should have done a card on this. Time shifting. So here's what happens. If you've got a list of 8 things that have to be done today, what'll happen is you'll probably get all 8 of those done, but 3 of those are going to get done in your least productive part of the day, or the last 15 minutes of your day. You're just going to whip through them and get them done. Perhaps what we ought to be doing is actually recognizing that this is true and schedule and save up jobs that don't require a lot of brain power, that don't require a lot of time, for those moments right at the end of my day or at the least productive part of my day when I don't have that mental focus to be able to do them well, and spend the part of my day that I am most productive on the things that are most important. The problem we tend to have is that the things that are most important tend to be things that are a little scary. And so we procrastinate doing them, and we do all them in that part when we are least mentally capable of doing them. And the consequence is we're constantly underperforming our personal potential. It shows up in our blog posts. It shows up in our videos. It shows up in our launches. It shows up in the way our list gets along with us. It shows up in our relationships with people. It shows up all over the place. And perhaps what we need to be doing is prioritizing the important things at the important parts of our life, at the parts of our life when we have the capability to actually do them best, and save up the least important things to be done when our performance is going to be at its worst. Think about this. You don't have to do everything you have to do. What can you do differently? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know some things that you think that you do all the time that perhaps you don't need to do. Let me know in the chat. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.